Hello there, welcome to another episode of Curihistory. This week we meet one of history's greatest womanizers. No, I'm not talking about Casanova. It is the one and only Julie d'Aubigny. But I guess you read the title of the video already. Before we dive into Julie, really not the best choice of words here, let's first talk about the role of women in France and French society in general in the late Middle Ages to early modern period. Contrary to popular belief, women had quite a bit of freedom in these times. Don't get me wrong, it was nowhere near equality. But women working in crafts, for example, was very common, and some artisans' professions were actually dominated by women, like weaving, for example. Ironically, the higher up in social hierarchy you went, the more restricted life as a woman could become. Daughters of noble families were primarily expected to be married away for political and economic gain. However, due to the rise of wealthy burghers, social barriers between nobles and the bourgeois started to dilute in the 17th century. It helped that King Louis XIV allowed those of low birth into certain positions of power if they were capable. The weakening of these barriers allowed members of the further state to act more and more like nobles, of course without any of the actual privileges, and it allowed nobles to act more like burghers. Furthermore, King Louis XIV consolidated the power in France on himself and his legions of officials. This made him an enemy of the old nobility and the church, who had most to lose in this power struggle. To keep the public opinion in his favor, Louis had a gigantic propaganda machine going, which included patronizing artists and intellectuals. Especially the freethinkers of the burgeoning Enlightenment, with their questioning of societal norms, were eager to side with Louis against the old establishment. Enough setting of the stage. Enter our protagonist Julie. She was born into a burgher family, however one that was deeply connected with the highest of nobility. Her father was the secretary to the Master of the Horse in Versailles, one of the most powerful positions in the French royal court. One of her father's duties was to train the pages of the palace, so naturally he taught Julie as well. Aside from reading, writing and dancing, she also picked up some traditionally male-coded skills of the time, like riding and sword fighting. As was proper for a young woman, she was married off to the Sieur de Maupin, who however never showed much interest in her. Likewise, Julie never spent much time with him either, though from this point on she was known as Madame de Maupin, or more commonly La Maupin. On the other hand, she quickly struck the fancy of her father's superior, the Comte d'Armagnac, who took her as his secret lover. Julie herself however fell for Serran, one of the court's fencing masters. Unfortunately, her crush kind of accidentally killed a guy in a duel. Yeah. That didn't bother Julie. In fact, that Serran had to flee from the police excited her. She gladly donned man's clothes and disappeared into the night with him. On the road, Julie reinvented herself as a showman duellist. Paired with Serran, the two became a side road attraction. Eventually, Julie, ever so mercurial, ditched Serran in favor of a lovely peasant woman she met on her travels. The parents of said peasant woman weren't so happy with this relationship and shipped their daughter off to a convent, possibly the Visitandines near Avignon. As if that would stop Julie. The young duellist simply took the vows to join the same covenant. Then she stole the body of a recently deceased nun, placed it in her lover's room, and set it on fire. With the young woman presumed dead, Julie could run off into the night with her. Eventually said lover seemed to grow tired of Julie and left to go back home. Thus the plan was found out and Julie was put on trial. As a man. The investigators found out a lot about her misdeeds, but not her gender, curiously enough. Charged with kidnapping, body snatching and arson, there could only be one conclusion: death by the pyre. Fortunately for Julie, she was never actually caught, and this trial happened entirely in absentia. At some point, King Louis XIV heard the stories of Julie and apparently enjoyed them so much that he pardoned her by royal decree. Not long after, she joined the Paris Opera, the same opera house Louis himself occasionally performed in. You heard that right, The Sun King was a lover of arts, especially musical theater. This way, Julie came into the king's inner circle for a second time in her life. Under the name La Maupin, she became a very famous and popular opera singer. Some plays were even written specifically for her. Yet Julie's temperament would eventually cause this to end. Even in the big city, she never stopped her womanizing and dueling. She was even known to beat men to a bloody pulp for creeping on her fellow actresses. Her take-no-crap attitude didn't stop for nobles either. She regularly was challenged, and challenged them herself to duels, which she commonly also won. Remember when I said that burghers could act a lot like nobles, but there were still some privileges they could not obtain? Being bested in a duel was shameful enough. Being bested by a burgher, one that is actually a woman, was even worse. And there was the fact that duels were actually illegal at this point in time. Yeah, it didn't go so well for Julie this time. The king had to save the face of both his nobles and himself, as his law was broken. Had Louis been lenient, he would have disgruntled the nobility even more and made his own rule of law look weak. As if that would stop Julie. She went to exile for about a year and then came back. The whole thing was brushed under the rug. After all, Louis was still her friend and he had much missed her singing. Julie quickly began to push the boundaries again by courting Madame la Marquise de Florensac, a woman she believed to be perfect. It seemed Julie was even willing to settle down for her perfect love. Alas, the happiness didn't last, as Madame Florensac died unexpectedly in 1705. Julie was so deeply scarred by this loss that she joined a convent. Only 2 years later she passed away as well, at the young age of 33. The cause of death is unknown, but one cannot rule out grief. Julie's life was a turbulent one. To quote Lao Tse, the flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long. But her life story shows us how truly wild and artistic the environment was that Louis XIV's reign had created. This concludes the story of Julie d'Aubigny. As always, take everything with a grain of salt, as we can only go by the historical record. Many thanks to my wonderful artist and to you viewers. I hope to see you again in the next episode. So long and bye!